Hello, Theodora.
Hello.
Thank you for coming back again to speak with us once again about wireless radiation.
Great. I am excited to be here again. Thank you so much for putting this on.
Great. Why don't you give us a quick update on what you've been up to for the last year and a little bit just about your background to get everyone up to speed on what you do and what you've been doing.
Great. So I'm executive director of Environmental Health Trust. We're a scientific think tank focused on prevention and healthy living, and also educating policymakers, the public, and changing laws to be more protective in regards to all of these preventable health issues that have to do with lifestyle or toxic exposures, environmental health exposures like air pollution, and our current focus is on wireless radiation. So that includes cell phones, Wi-Fi, 5G, cell towers, all of the smart, quote unquote, or not so smart devices that we're surrounded by that type of radiation. And what we've been up to is really addressing accountability at the federal level and calling for accountability with the US government. We sued the FCC in 1996 is when the limits were set for wireless radiation, but we sued them in 2020 when they decided to keep limits which were set in 1996 about how much radiation you're allowed to be exposed to from your phone, your cell phone, and so forth. And we had a favorable ruling. So the US Court of Appeals, the second highest court in the land, determined that the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, had acted in an arbitrary and capricious manner when they decided to keep their stale, outdated, antiquated 1996 limits because they had ignored science showing impacts to memory, damage to reproduction, children's unique vulnerability, the impact of long-term exposure, and also impacts to wildlife, birds, bees, and trees. And they have not responded to the court. The court actually mandated that they respond showing how these limits from 1996 apply to all the issues I just addressed, and they haven't responded. So we have been not only educating the public and trying to get people aware of this issue that most people aren't, but also we've been filing with the federal government, calling on them to respond in a way that shows they've fully reviewed the issue. We want the agencies that are supposed to be doing their jobs to do their jobs, like the Environmental Protection Agency, the FDA, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the Department of Labor, all of these agencies, and the CDC, which, by the way, is revamping its web pages, we've learned, with a grant to a group that is led by wireless industry consultants. So that's what we've been working on, is government accountability, educating the public, and meeting with policymakers to educate them so that they can really hold our government agencies accountable.
So if we could just look at your website for a second, there's a section there on an environmental health trust called Key Issues. Can we just click on that and just see what's under there? So
Sure.
Safe technology, breast cancer environment, 5G cell phones, Wi-Fi schools, cell towers. Okay, so anything you want to say quickly about those key issues? We'll go into them in more detail, but is there anything more about anything briefly you want to tell us about these issues?
Well, I'm really glad you pulled up the site. So it's at ehtrust.org, and we want this to be a resource for people to learn about, let's start with breast cancer and cell phones. If you hover over breast cancer in the environment, you can both go there or you can go to the side, which is specifically about phones. So there is published research, both case reports and also a study that looked at women who use the cell phone next to their breast or put it in their bra, that links that kind of exposure to breast cancer. And we have a campaign to make your bra a no cell phone zone. is that simple, because the phone emits radiation all the time, even when you're not using it. So you want to have the phone not in body contact. And a lot of times women will put the phone in their bra, go out on the town, or they'll have earpods in or some kind of speaker in the car. But the phone is actually radiating, and your tissue absorbs that radiation, and it is linked to the development of cancer. Now, there's science indicating that people that use cell phones heavily with the cell phone to the head have higher risks for types of brain cancer as well. So this is just that's what that web page is about. And there's also, if you scroll down on it, you can go deeper and deeper in if you want more and more research. And that's Dr. Deborah Davis, our president, speaking at the University of Melbourne on the issue. And if you scroll down a little bit more, you can hear some stories of young women and women who had the cell phone in their bra and developed breast cancer. And that's Tiffany Franz's. She's on the right side there. Unfortunately, sadly, she passed away. But before she did, she spoke out on this so much. And her mother developed a PowerPoint to educate high schoolers. And that's what the graphic a little bit below there is. It says no phone zone. That was a slideshow presented to parents, to students in high school that her mother developed to educate the kids. And Tiffany was so kind and courageous in speaking out. And she also had allowed images from her scans to really show students why they should be careful with the cell phone. So those are all resources. And there's even more below, but I don't know if we have time for all that, but you can click on those and learn more. If you want to go deep dive. Sometimes people want to just, jump in the rabbit hole, and our website is a rabbit hole in that way.
Okay. So thank you. So everyone can go to Environmental Health Trust. I see you have a donate button. How are you guys doing? Do you guys have enough money to take action against the FCC and to properly educate people? Is it easy to get donations? How is it going?
Well, thank you. Well, yeah, we are a nonprofit. We have funding, but we need more funding to do this work. So we are about to launch a couple campaigns that we're working on, and they are going to require the support. Whatever you can give, if it is donating money, if it is donating your time, if it is educating others, please come and join us and contact us for presentations. Donate if you can. It really makes a difference. So we use our money towards all of these efforts. You can go on our website and see everything that we're up to. In fact, yesterday, it was Monday, we presented to the National Spectrum Association on this issue. Those are the spectrum managers. We are just working every day to fix this. So
okay,
that's what we're trying to do. Raise awareness. So you're not like me who went, what? Cell phone? Wait, radiation? Like, I didn't even know my phone emitted radiation. Now, I guess it's over a decade ago, but I'm glad I know now. And we need to get the word out about how to fix this. Oh, the one other thing that we're working on is, supporting companies understanding what they need to do to fix this, because this isn't just going to be about consumers or the government, but also industry needs to step up to the plate and do the research and design possible to make safer electronics and technology, and so that we can not need so much wireless. I mean, there really are ways, there are a lot of solutions here, but instead the world's gone all wireless all the time, which just doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so in general, a lot of people are very rational. If you polled our audience right now, They will not walk up to a stove and put their finger and burn themselves. They will not drop a bowling ball on their foot. Many of them don't eat sugar and processed food and fried food and animal products. They're all making very good rational decisions. But if you talked about wireless radiation, a lot of them would just kind of say, well, I don't, they'd blow it off. They wouldn't think it's a very serious issue. So the question is, why do so many people believe that eating animal products or sugar or processed food is a health concern, but wireless radiation is frivolous? It's not a real health concern, maybe, and if you did it for a very, very long time, but they don't really believe it. So is there any hardcore scientific data that is perfectly clear that using a cell phone up to your head or leaving in your bra or putting in your pocket, that there are real, clear, absolute health issues and documented science that says that we really have a health concern if we expose ourselves to this a lot? Is there data that you can point to that confirms
there is so much data that is as clear as a bell that there are effects found at levels below the thresholds that the government set. Like what the government says is safe, just like with food or pesticides, is absolutely inaccurate. It's false. There's a false sense of safety. So I was mostly healthy eater. I've become much more healthy since I jumped into this and learned how, if you can buy it off the shelf, it doesn't mean it's safe. And it's the same thing with this issue. So just to give you an example about what is clear. So the way, and maybe this will help, when cell phones, it's not on, but cell phones can, they emit radiation, right? And they emit microwaves. So when the scientists that decided to investigate this, and there was years of research into this by entities which were a lot were military. The military was very involved because of radar, and there was a lot of work done by related to military applications. And they decided that heating was the only harm based on studies where it was just a few small animals. I'm talking about under 20, maybe it was 22, like a few monkeys, a few rats, where they did these studies where they starved them so they would be hungry with the rodents. And then they had taught them so that they could tap a lever for food, and they tapped the lever to get the food, and they knew how to do that. They'd been trained to do that. And then they turn on the microwaves. And they put them in an experimental setup where they had a thermometer. They called it a colonic thermometer. So you know where the thermometer is, right? Keeping the temperature of the animal. They turned on the microwave. They did exposures for under an hour. Microwave exposures for under an hour at very high levels. When it got so high that the little mice or rat didn't press that lever for food, that's when they decided, that's too hot. We can't let it go that hot. And that is how the determination was made that heating is the harm, that there's this level. When it goes above this level, when you're overheated to a certain level, that's bad. That is how our limits are set based on that. They arbitrarily came up with a safety factor, which is not a safety factor at all. And they set limits based on that theory. Heating is the only harm. All these biochemical changes it is known that there are cellular impacts from non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation. There are biological impacts, and there are so many studies. I mean, I could start just listing them, but there's no lack of studies in people, like people who use cell phones for long-term, and long-term defined as 10 years, who developed brain cancer on the same side of the head where they hold the phone. There's studies on teenagers that after 1 year of use of a cell phone to the head, then they were tested with a memory test before at the beginning and then a year later after a year of use. And those who use the cell phone most with the cell phone to the head had damage to the memory that they found in the tests that applied to that exact part of their brain, where the scientists had understood that that's where the most radiation went into the brain. There's animal studies, such as the National Toxicology Program, $30 million study that looked at rats and mice and found the male rats developed the same kinds of tumors that studies in people who use cell phones long-term did, gliomas and schwannomas. That study was designed and put forward because the FDA said many years ago in 1999 that we don't have enough research. We need more hard research. We need to see could this be harmful for the long term? Let's do animal studies. We need large scale animal studies, said the FDA. So the National Toxicology Program did the large scale animal studies, and they found increased tumors. They also found genetic damage in tissues in the mice and the rats. And then the FDA said they didn't agree with the National Toxicology Program study. So that's where some of the confusion is this constant attacks on studies that shows harm. But when taken as a whole, what scientists say, hundreds of scientists who've published in the field say it is clear that there are effects at levels well below what governments say is safe, and we must reduce exposure.
Okay, so just to clarify, just kind of the same question, but so how many studies are there showing that there's a risk from wireless radiation? How many studies are there showing that it's perfectly safe and there is not a risk? Where are these studies if someone wanted to follow up themselves? And are these large studies, or are they just like 5 or 10 people? So in other words, let's have the whole, not by, trying to steer people in one way or the other. How many studies are there show there's a problem? How many studies are there showing that it's safe? Where do you find these studies? And how big are these studies?
Those are great questions, but so it depends on when you start counting studies. Count people. There's a lot of scientists that count studies. So there was an article published in The Lancet. You don't mind if, in fact, I could show you where all these studies are that had, let me pull it up if you want numbers. And I apologize that I didn't come prepared with a number, but I can't answer that question actually. So one second. First, go to our website if you want to see studies. Under the science tab, we have top studies. I have numerous studies on there. I could even show you if I can share my screen too. If you're interested. Go to, you know what, on scientific evidence, go up to scientific evidence. Yeah, top studies. Do you see it there at the top? And I have some of, not all, the top studies, but let me get you some numbers because I know you want some numbers.
I just want to know, is there like 2 or 3 studies on this?
Oh, no, thousands. So I was trying to get you the right thousands. So
you're saying there's thousands of studies saying
thousands of
radiation?
studies.
Are they
Yes.
big studies? Are they a lot of people in or animals?
Well, there are a variety of studies. So the Lancet, which is a very respected journal, Lancet Planetary Health, published an article, it's Bandera and Carpenter, that reviews this issue and says a recent evaluation of 2,266 studies, including in vitro and in vivo studies in human, animal, and plant experimental systems and population studies, found most studies, 68%, have demonstrated significant biological or health effects associated with exposure to human-made electromagnetic fields. So that is only from, I believe, a few decades. There are a lot of slicing and dicing that goes on with studies. So there are some studies that are 6 bunnies. There are some studies that are 50. There are studies that have thousands of rats. There are studies that look at, hundreds of people. And there are studies that look at experimental studies, for example, might not look at that many with people. There's they would look at much less people, right? But then you might have the studies where you follow people long term that have much more people or mother-child pairs.
So these studies are done on both rats and also humans.
Oh yes, rats, mice, humans,
Okay. And
plants, trees.
so you're saying, though, that there are thousands of studies.
There are thousands of studies because even before, like when people start counting studies, it might be the last decade or 2 decades. There have been decades of studies even before then that were done. Zori Glaser was a scientist who worked on this in many different capacities in many different government agencies. And actually, he would do yearly or sometimes 4 times a year reports to the U.S. government on all of these studies. And I even have some, except they're behind a wall right now. But
we don't need them. That's
I
okay.
just moved in here, but I have like his compilation. So there was so many studies that were done. Yeah. And
the studies that how many studies are there that are credible and large that show that there's no problem with wireless radiation?
I don't have that exact number, but I would say hundreds of studies. I mean, they're all, every study, here's the thing about science. Every study has a value. So sometimes some scientists, now I'm jumping into the how scientists work, but they might do like a beginning study just to see, does the application of the exposure, does it work? And they start out small, and then they do larger studies based on that. Dr. Hugh Taylor from Yale, he was chief of OBGYN at Yale Medicine. He did a study on mice, and he took pregnant mice and exposed them to cell phones, a cell phone on the cage, and then tested the offspring when they were born and found that they developed damaged memory and more hyperactivity. He says if mice could have ADHD, that's what they would have. Now, after that study came out, and that was a very credible study, and clearly showed results in the study. I remember in the press conference, because I was at the press conference, where he said, and we're going to be doing more research on this. Now, why has there been no more research from that on that? What happened? Well, there was no grants that were given. Why not? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that they haven't been able to, there's been no additional research. And you'll find from that particular group, even though there's a lot of research from other groups, and actually Dr. Hugh Taylor is on our board and working with us and very much presenting on this issue. But, there is an interesting situation that happens with scientists that publish on this issue. Dr. Henry Lai, many years ago, found DNA damage in the animal studies he was doing. And this was pretty unprecedented to find DNA damage after cell phone radiation. And he was attacked, and there was a memo that was found between Motorola and the PR company where they said, we've war gamed the science on Dr. Henry Lai's science. They attacked the study, criticized it. There was a lot of media coming out saying the study had this problem or that problem. And that war gaming of the science is a strategy that has continued to this day, where if a study comes out, it is attacked as not credible, even when it is.
So assuming there's a lot of studies that say there are problems with wireless radiation, what I was asking, though, is are there also studies saying, no, wireless radiation is not a problem? Are there, in other words, if I was arguing with someone somewhere and I said, look, here's thousands of articles showing this wireless radiation is problematic, would they be able to say, well, I also have thousands of credible large-scale studies showing wireless radiation is safe? Have you seen credible non-industry studies that are large that say there's no problem, wireless radiation is fine?
Interesting question. So there are studies that show when you do a study, like an actual study, an experiment, they don't make conclusions like generally this means there's safety or not. When you have animals or bunnies, they do that. That happens in the reviews when you do reviews of a lot of studies. So there are studies that have seemed to show no effect. There are many times where those studies that show no effect are either funded by the industry, or there are times where they are short-term studies. So there have been some studies that have recently come out, for example, but they did not even adequately measure or go the length of time that is really needed to see what are the effects that they were looking for. So that happens a lot where there are short-term studies that may not show an effect that's linked to long-term exposure. So there are studies on both sides, and there's a heavy industry funding of the studies. And there are studies that some say were designed never to show an effect anyway.
Do you ever
That's the
find
situation.
studies? Do you ever find studies that are not funded by industry that really seem to be good quality, large scale, long term, that say that wireless radiation is totally safe?
I have never seen a study like that. And there's certainly not one that proves safety. No.
And you've seen a lot of studies that are credible, long term, and large scale that seem to indicate there is a risk with wireless radiation?
Our scientists published a review, and it's actually several papers at this point, concluding that radiofrequency radiation meets criteria based on the evidence that we have now to be a human carcinogen. That is looking at the human studies and the animal studies. And the mechanistic studies. So there's oxidative stress, for example. There was a review done on oxidative stress. So oxidative stress is linked to many different neurodegenerative diseases. If you have cancer, you don't want to have a lot of oxidative stress. You want to decrease your oxidative stress. And the conclusion in that paper that looked at many different studies, okay, all over the map kind of studies, human, animal, cell, said there is a trend. There is a trend that oxidative stress, despite there being small and large and all of these different studies, there is an effect. And people who are more vulnerable, be you already sick, be young and old, will be less able to mitigate that oxidative stress, less able to handle it. Their bodies will be less resilient if you're more vulnerable. So there are many hundreds of scientists that say it's clear. The science is clear that wireless radiation can cause harm, and we need to change regulations.
Among the scientists who are not industry scientists, who have looked at this with no bias, are there many scientists who think wireless radiation is a health concern? Or how many scientists are there that agree with your position that wireless radiation is a health concern?
Well, the EMF scientist appeal has about, I think, around 250, maybe a little less or more than that, of scientists who have published in the field. So bioelectromagnetics is it encompasses a lot of different areas, and there are people that are experts in that, and they have published on the issue. There was an appeal that was put out of UK and international scientists and medical doctors and health practitioners, and I think that was 3,500 experts. Now, what's happened is, if you don't know the issue and you're a medical doctor and you haven't been trained, you haven't gone to the EMF medical conference, and one might simply go to what the FDA or the CDC or the FCC says to get your information. So there it says that all's well. However, I am not aware of hundreds of experts in electromagnetic fields that are saying this is safe, except there is a group at the International Commission for Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection. They have a great name. That is a great name, but they are under 15 people, and they have been saying that wireless is safe unless it heats for years now. And many governments actually listen to what they say. Now, at the FDA, for example, we don't even know who at the FDA is working on this. We met with them a few years ago with maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people around the table. I don't think all of them are there. And I don't think there's any more than that who's working on this issue because it's not even in the budget. At the EPA, they're fully defunded from working on this. And they've written us numerous letters saying, in response to your questions, we have no funded mandate. So at the FCC, they're not a health and safety agency. So if there are other scientists, there are about 5 in the United States that we see testifying for the wireless industry on a regular basis. And so I don't know who, I don't know who the hundreds of scientists are that are promoting that wireless is safe. I don't believe they exist, actually. I think ICNIRP exists, and I think industry-funded scientists exist.
So in 20 seconds or less, what are the health concerns with wireless radiation? What are you talking about could happen to you if you're exposed to it?
Well, there's brain cancer, breast cancer when you have the phone near your body. Genetic damages, impacts to sperm have been found, impacts to fertility, biochemical changes in your body that can make you less resilient to dealing with other problems. So you have fertility, memory damage, prenatal impacts, so impacts to developmentally to children. There's been research that's found, for example, synergistic effects, meaning you might have, in one study, they looked at lead levels, kids who'd been exposed to lead and also had higher cell phone exposure, and found that they had more symptoms, ADHD symptomology. And in fact, there's quite a growing literature on the mix, when you kind of like when you mix drugs, well, you mix toxic exposures with electromagnetic fields. There's been research showing impacts to the blood-brain barrier, which would then allow more of that toxic exposure or the chemicals or the whatever, the metals and so forth to circulate in your brain, where of course it can do more damage. So that impacts to the brain is, well, it certainly is one of my, that's what got me interested in this issue, because I don't, you can't take it back. You can't say, oh, it is what it is. So if in 10 years or however many years, the US government decides that they're going to label phones and say, don't put them against your head. And when you carry the baby in the sling, don't put it up against the baby, which they should be saying, you won't be able to go back in time and fix and take back that time. There's one thing in the human studies, the more time, it's cumulative, right? The time matters. So that's why we educate on reducing that time of exposure. You'll never be able to take it back. Look, I had my baby in a sling and I had that phone right on the baby. Okay. So not as much as I see now, because we didn't use the phone that much 21 years ago. But so.
Okay. So let me ask you a bunch of things to just give me a quick answer on. I want to ask you about 8 different things and just tell me which is the most concerning, the least concerning. So someone has a cell phone. For starters, the cell phone's off. So can I start out by saying when a cell phone is turned off, can we call it harmless? It's off. Is that harmless at that point?
If the phone is off, it's not transmitting, except, I hate to say this, but some of the newer phones are on when they're off. And I never thought I mean, they're literally on when they're off. So the newest iPhone I found is on when it's off. And that is why we recommend contacting the companies too. And that's something that we're working on. So yeah, turn it off. We recommend getting a cell phone that stays off when it's off.
How do we know if it's off?
Well, the ones that they'll tell you, even though it's off, you can still find it. It has a little finder because it's actually, it's not as much. Look, the phone is not on as much as when the power's on. I think it's I have to find which iPhone. It's like the newest iPhone. But like my phone is an 11 and it's off when it's off. And I know because I use the meter. So turn it off. Turn it on airplane mode, turn it on Bluetooth to turn off the antennas. And I can use cell phone on a Ethernet, like in my house. I can't see if you can see it there, but can connect it with the wire.
So the first thing is when it's off, ideally you want a phone that's really off. And if you have a meter, it would show that whether it's on or not.
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing is
brand new, newest Apple phones.
Okay. So the first thing is a phone that's off, unless it's one of the newest ones, is off. Now,
yes,
you turn the phone on, and you and you're saying the first thing you're saying is if you're making a phone call and put it right up to your head and sit on the phone for an hour right to your head, that's the worst of everything. Is that right?
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
That's okay. Now, instead of putting it to your head, one step better with saying is speakerphone. Is that a little bit better?
Yes, use it on speakerphone.
Okay.
And
so
put it on the table if you can.
Yes. So yes. So not even on touching your body is even better. Now, the next question is, if you, instead of calling and using the speakerphone, you just text with it. So first calling is would be the worst, then speakerphone is next. Now, how about if I'm just texting? Is that much better than calling?
Texting is much better than voice calls or video calls. So something that and I know I have two, well, they're not even necessarily teenagers anymore, but everyone's doing this FaceTiming all the time. If it's not necessary, don't do it, because the video uses a much higher amount of not just energy, but it's moving a lot more through the air. So the thing to remember is the radiation exposure is from the information that's moving. It's a wireless communication signal. So when you have video moving or even sound, that's much more than just text, which is just a few words. So
Okay.
texting is better, not texting with pictures.
Pictures is worse than just words.
Like, I am at the airport, here I am, I'm at, number 13. Just keep it simple. That's it. All this texting that's happening is an issue. But there is a lot of communications. One thing I did was like, what's really important? It was kind of like a journey. Like some people make a journey with food, or they make a journey with toxic chemicals and kind of getting rid of, cleaning the water that they're drinking most of the time, or not using certain lotions and getting rid of fragrance and all of that. It's the same thing. It's like getting educated one step at a time. And it really makes a difference.
Okay. So texting words is better than texting with pictures, and texting with pictures is better than an actual voice or where you can see the person.
Like FaceTime.
FaceTime, right. Better than
right.
FaceTime.
Better to just text.
Okay. Now, next question is, you heard this lecture, you're following your instructions, but your husband or wife didn't hear the lecture. So they're next to you on the couch, 2 feet away. How much distance protects you? Is every foot make a big difference? Is 10 feet away enough? Is 50 feet away? So if someone else is using their cell phone, how many feet away do you have to be where you're not getting exposure that concerns you?
What I would say is distance is your friend, but I can't give you an exact number. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but it really is true that every foot makes a difference. So in fact, every inch makes a difference. Every millimeter makes a difference. You want to get as much of a distance as possible, but it's that close range exposure is going to really expose parts of your body. There are some things we can control. The way I approach this is I control what I can control and try to educate people around me that I love so that they can take steps to reduce exposure. And also this setup that I was showing you, the reason I was showing it is that if you're in your home, you can connect your cell phone to, I know it looks kind of funny, but cord's not cancer. That's my theory, is you can connect this and you can actually do everything on your cell phone. So that you would want to do, except for, unfortunately, make a call through the usual way. You can make it through WhatsApp, for example, but you can connect your phone to a wire when you're in your home.
Okay.
I know
Now,
that's like the last step. That's not the first step. It's sort of like that's deeper in, but
okay. So someone now is, if someone is, you're saying the further away they are, the better if they're
yes.
on the phone. Is there a point though where you're being neurotic? Like if someone's 40 feet away, am I getting
Oh,
significant exposure, or at that point should I just relax?
I know 40 feet is pretty far. So, however, a cell tower in front of your bedroom window at 40 feet is a different story.
Got it. Now, let's assume that we keep away from these phones, but now the phone is, a phone call is over, and now the phone is just on. How far away do you want to be from an on phone in your house? Is 3 feet away enough, 10 feet away, 20? In other words, assume you're in the bedroom at night. How many feet away do you want that phone to be from you? Does it have to be 20 feet away? Does it have to be 50? Does it have to be in a different floor? Does it have to be off? It's 10 hours a night. What do you do?
Best case scenario is you turn your phone off. That's the best thing to do. And if you have it, there is the issue of emergencies. So hopefully keep your phone if you have one, or I have a phone with a cord in the bedroom that goes through the internet service. So it's like an internet phone that I have in the house. I know not everyone has that. Some people only have cell phones, right? But I would just have it off, or put it across as far away as you can. That's what I would recommend. Every room is different, right? So
Okay, what about the bedroom? You're going to sleep at
don't
night.
sleep on the phone.
Assume you're going to sleep at night for the next 30 years, and you're going to be in your bedroom every night for 9 hours. And your partner says, I got to be able to reach the kids and my parents, so I have to have a phone on. And you say, okay, let's keep it far away. How far away is it have to be so a phone that's not being used, but it's on, really doesn't significantly concern you? Is 20 feet away enough to just say every night for the rest of my life, there's going to be a cell phone 20 feet away? Or are you saying, no, that's like, burning a cigarette 20 feet away, it eventually gets to you?
This is, so there are, I see where you're going. Not all bedrooms are 20 feet. So probably they're about 10 feet or less. I think the way this works in real life, though, is that you sort of have to do the best you can. So, if you need the phone to be on, don't not only put it far away, but if you can put it, if there's a window or a windowsill, I like to put, when I need to use the phone, be near the window, because that way the signal is clearer for the phone and it doesn't radiate as much. So, once it's a few feet away, there's going to be much less exposure, but there still is some exposure. And I know that because I have a meter. So now my daughter is coming. Sophia, I'm on the phone. So, and it's hard having me as a mom. So I would, here's the other thing is phones are all different as to what they emit depending on other things that might be in your home. So if you're in a basement situation where there's not a lot of service, your phone actually can emit much more trying to reach out. So that is why we really recommend getting a phone that is connected with a cord.
Got it. Okay.
I really do recommend that.
Right. Now, your children are off to school, they're off to college, they're off to whatever, and every single person that they know, 100%, has a cell phone, and they're on. Now, what do you tell them to do? Do they put it in their pocketbook? Do they put it in their pocket? Do they hold it? What do you do? I mean, it's 2023, I'd like to tell them not to use it. They might say that's not realistic. I have to be textable. I have to be reachable. So the choices seem to be your hand, your pocket, your pocketbook, or not at all? What do you do?
To not sleep with it next to your head. You mean when you're walking on campus?
I mean,
To not have it.
from 8 a.m. until midnight, what does every kid in this country, what does anyone do who, other than really motivated people, what do you tell your children about this, about what they should do?
I'm going to tell you there's a two-part answer to this. One part is what I'm going to tell you, you can tell your kids. And the second part is that this is why the companies and the federal government needs to act on this immediately, because they can fix this, because there is only so much that we can do, right? We can educate them. We can say, don't put it in your bra. Don't put the phone to your head. Put it in your backpack instead of on your body, in your pocket against your reproductive parts. We can tell them that. We can tell them not to sleep with their phone or have all these devices on them. But the reality is we have to get our lawmakers and our agencies to do what they need to do, or as consumers, tell companies what we want. I mean, this is, I hear you. I have one in college and one going to college. We are also writing colleges. We've written all of the state departments of education. I mean, this needs to be addressed. For example, in the dorm rooms, they should have Ethernet ports, and a lot of schools do have Ethernet ports and phone lines for all the kids, so that they're not having these devices on all the time. So I hear you, but I mean, distance and turning it on airplane mode whenever possible, and getting time off the phone. And I think most kids I talk to, even ones that are on their phone a lot, they know, be it the radiation or just the addiction, that when they're off their phone, they're happier. So have a little time off your phone and talk to your friends face to face.
So what if their choice, though, is hold it in your hands, put it in your pocketbook, put it in your pocket, put it in your sock? Is it all the same?
It's all different parts of your body. So you want a distance, and you want it away from your head and from your, I apologize, from your body, especially your breast tissue, which is a certain kind of tissue, actually.
And is texting significantly better than using it to make a phone call or a FaceTime?
It's pretty significant. Texting significantly is. Yeah.
Okay.
Compared to voice calls or video calls. And also another thing you can do, this is a good one. If you're not using Bluetooth, turn off the Bluetooth antennas. There are many antennas on a phone. Turn the antennas off you're not using. If you're inside and you're using the Wi-Fi, turn off the cellular, turn off the 5G. Oh, another thing, to have less apps. The more apps you have that are running, updating, downloading, the more radiation exposure. So get rid of apps you're not using and set them so that they upgrade, like when you want to have control of that. And you need to learn to use airplane mode. Turn your phone on airplane mode more often.
Okay, now let's assume that you get into a car and someone has their cell phone on in the car. They're not making a call. They're just sitting you're driving the car, they're in the passenger seat, and they just are holding a phone that's on. Is this different than if I'm sitting in my kitchen? Is their signal stronger? Is it more health risk? Or is it just like being 3 feet away in the kitchen?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when you're in your car, actually, the signal your exposure can be more for a couple reasons. One, your cell phone, even when you're not using it, it's always checking in with the nearest cell phone tower. That's why cell towers are called cell, because there's a cell around the tower where the tower services, meaning the tower is connecting to all the phones in its cell. But when you're in a car, you're moving from cell to cell. You're actually passing by many cell towers, right? That means that you're going from one cell tower to another cell tower. And each time your phone is actually doing a digital handshake saying, bye, I'm leaving that cell tower area. Now I'm going to the next one. And those are little intense moments as the phone is traveling. So when a phone is traveling, there can be a higher exposure. Plus, You're in a metal situation where the radiation can bounce in unexpected ways, reflect off the metal. So you can sometimes get higher levels of exposure when you're in a confined metal space. Elevators too. Turn your phone off in an elevator, especially like, let's say you've got it on your body, which I wish you didn't, but turn it off in an elevator because it can really go to really high power in that situation. So, yes, if you're sitting next to someone, that elevates the level, not as much as if you had the phone to your head. It doesn't do that all over your body, but it can increase it. So we say don't use a phone in the car.
But it's better if it's on in the car, is still much better than texting in the car, and texting in the car is still better than making a phone call in the car.
It's never good to text in a car. Okay. Unless, I mean, if you're the driver, certainly.
I mean, the passenger.
Okay, the passenger. Texting would be better than streaming video. So like if you have kids, don't stream videos. Kids shouldn't be streaming videos in the car. You can pre-download any, like, let's say you're going on a car drive, been there, right? Sometimes you're going for hours in the car, have all those movies already on the devices, and don't have the device on a lap. Even, always use a pillow or something to keep it off the lap. That's another thing, is keeping laptops and tablets off the lap.
But in general, you are saying that we are better off if the phone's going to be on in the car. It's still much better to be on and not making a phone call than it is to be on in the car. So you were saying making a phone call in a car, leaving it on for an emergency is still much better than actually conducting a call in the car. So
yes, when you conduct a call in the car, there's going to be much more.
Okay.
Anytime the phone is working or doing something or updating, talking, moving, that is creating wireless signals. Those signals are radio frequency. It's modulated pulse radio frequency radiation. And then some of that's being absorbed into your body.
Okay. So I am off the phone for a second now and I go to my laptop. Is my laptop the same? How does it compare to the cell phone if I'm using a wireless laptop?
So Wi-Fi is radio frequency radiation. It's the same kind of radiation as from a cell phone. It's radio frequency. It's a little bit different depending on that has to do with the modulation, and it's actually a very erratic signal. So it does not mean safer. Wi-Fi is not necessarily safer, especially when people are putting it right up against their body. So when you put a laptop or a tablet, the radiation is coming out of the antennas and some of it is being absorbed into your body. Maybe your chest, some into your head, not as intensely as a phone right to the head, but there is what many scientists would say is a significant exposure that's happening to more of your body. And putting it on your lap, you're getting also the magnetic fields, another kind of non-ionizing radiation exposure. So when you put it really close to your body, you're getting more exposure. Again, distance.
Okay. And then what about if there's just Wi-Fi in the house in general? I'm 40 feet away from the router. The Wi-Fi is on. Is this a concern? Is it better to have it off always?
It's much better to have it off because the Wi-Fi router is putting out signal throughout your whole house, right? Trying to always say what the router is always going, I'm available. It's letting, how when you turn your device on and it knows what Wi-Fi is around. So it's always trying to show all the devices that it's around. And there's something called a beacon signal, which is just always going out. And that has been found to be have a biological implications, make it more biologically active. So it's best to turn the Wi-Fi off at night, at least. And then if you can get a setup, like I'm talking to you right now, I have an Ethernet cord. This isn't it, but this is one I have in my house. And then I have a adapter and I connect it. And then I connect this to the laptop. It's also faster. It's much faster to have your devices connected with a wire. when you're in like a fixed location at your desk or so forth. And there's also adapters for tablets.
So, but just once again, though, to understand like how big a deal this is, there's Wi-Fi on the house. It's 40 feet away. You know, it's in on
Well, it goes through the whole house. So it's
Oh.
elevating through the whole house. That's what its job is.
But I know where it's located. So if I'm 40 feet away from the location where it starts from, is that okay? Or are you saying I'm still exposing myself?
We would recommend that you start by turning it off at night and when you're not using it. And then if you can get wires, that is the best way to use the internet, actually.
Well, I understand that, but I'm saying for people that live in families that are trying to live in the modern world, is a cell phone and a Wi-Fi or router the same thing? That if we're 50 feet away from a cell phone call and 50 feet away from a Wi-Fi router,
they can be different. There's a lot of technical reasons why there can be different exposures. Some of the newest Wi-Fi routers that are coming out right now, they have a lot coming off of them. You don't want them in the bedroom. You don't want them certainly near your body. They're quite powerful, and they're not even when they're not on, even when you're not doing anything with them. So you would want to keep it as far away as possible if you're in a situation where you can't fix it, for sure. However, we really do recommend getting a wire if you can. Not everyone has the ability to have it even be 40 feet. If you're in an apartment, you've got it. How many people have I met? They have a Wi-Fi router in the bedroom.
And what about AirPods and people that are like wireless headphones? How are these things?
So we don't recommend using wireless things in your ear at all, because that is, while it is a lower exposure, kids and adults use it all the time. So it's kind of like a constant low level microwaves in your ear. And we recommend using a wired headset with an air tube, so that there's no traveling for the electrical signal. So you can get an air tube headset, low EMF air tube headsets. You can look that up. Those are available. Also, speakerphone is what we would recommend.
Okay, so the big fat question that everyone wants to know is, there's loads and loads of companies saying amazing things about devices for the whole house, for your phone. I want to believe it's so much. I want to do anything I can to be able to say I have this great thing. As a matter of fact, I even have this from a company called Blue Shield. I don't know. The guy it looked very good. It was very nice. They wrote good things. I'm not a scientist, but it sounded very good. I want to believe that it's protecting me. I really want to believe it's protecting me. What are you finding about all these devices? Is anything work? Is anything help? Is anything proven to be effective?
We have not. So there have been so many studies just in the last decade that I've been working on this. We have not been able to or focused on assessing them, because they change so much and there are not standards to understand what might be helpful and what might not, because of the complexity of the issue. So we don't comment on all of these devices that are around. I can say, so I'm just not going to comment on devices themselves. That's not something that we've researched. Also, something that we really focus on is long-term effects. So I don't know that we don't have data or studies that are being done on people that are using devices long-term and if they help. So I can't comment on that. I do know some people that say, maybe it will, maybe it won't. I'm going to go for it. But this is not the research that we do ourselves. So, but we want the companies we think the companies should be coming up with ways to mitigate the exposure. Absolutely.
Should we stop visiting New York City if they put up 5G towers? Like, am I at a health risk just by going to New York City if there are 5G towers everywhere?
These are important questions that are happening with all of these 5G towers that are going up. Now, those, I should tell you something, they have not been turned on. The antennas, there has been no agreement signed, even though these big, ugly, gigantic cell phone towers are going up 2,000 in New York. They have not, those 5 tiers are not filled with antennas at this time. So we'll see what happens there. I do know that this is why, in addition to making changes in our personal life, and I know everyone probably who's watching is like, knows so much about food and toxics and pesticides and all of these issues, but we really need to we really need to get major change quite urgently with the companies and our government agencies in order to fix this. Because otherwise, where do we go? What do we do?
Okay. Assume that tomorrow you have a chance to talk to a group of 16-year-olds and they say, oh, we're going to class. We only have 1 minute between classes. Please tell us everything we need to know for the rest of our lives to protect ourselves from wireless radiation, but you only have 1 minute. What would you say to them are the most important things that they have to know in a minute?
To protect yourself?
To protect themselves.
Yeah, keep the cell phone away from your head. Don't put it against your body in your pants or in your bra, and use airplane mode more. Turn the phone off sometimes and enjoy time with your friends. Keep the phone at a distance. Use your computers with an Ethernet cord. I mean, there's really a lot more possibilities to do that than you think. I know I'm going over my hour, but
hour and 15 minutes. Go
no,
ahead.
I meant my minute. It's a hard one. So I would just say, keep the phone away from your body. Keep wireless devices away from your body. Keep a distance, and educate you more about this. Ask questions. I mean, we need our youth to start asking questions and ensuring safety before they start rolling all of these quote unquote smart devices out. If they damage the brain, how smart are these devices? It's not smart.
How do we make our wireless phone connected to the internet so that it's not wireless anymore? How do we make
our cell phone?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is an Ethernet cord that you connect to the router. Which I have a modem that's, I don't know if it's called a router, but it does not have, the wireless is off. It actually doesn't have wireless capability. You could get one that has wireless, but that you can press a button to turn it off. You need to get your own. So I have the Ethernet, then I plug it in to here, and then I plug it into the phone. Actually, every phone's different, so you have to do a little bit of research. We have it on our Healthy Tech Project at Home site, some how-tos that I could show you, but then you can do WhatsApp, you can do everything you do on Wi-Fi, but with the data goes through the cord, not through the air. Basically, technology was rolled out, and companies like wireless because it's not as regulated. It's really largely unregulated in many ways related to the health issues, but we want the information to go through the cord, not through the air. When it's in the air, it is absorbed into our bodies and into the bodies of our pets and wildlife, pollinators, birds, bees, and trees. Another whole issue, which is critically important, that we are working on now as well. I mean, with all of these 5G towers going up in New York City or in neighborhoods, what about the trees and the bees? There is a substantial body of research indicating effects on pollinators and on wildlife. There was a major review that was just published of over 1,200 studies indicating serious effects at very, very low levels to wildlife.
Marilyn, would you like to ask a question, and where are you from? Marilyn? David, would you like to ask a question, and where are you from?
Hi, it's David, and I'm from the Washington, D.C. area. Hi, Theodora.
Hi, wonderful to see you again, or hear you.
Anyway, I was just wondering, Theodora, given all the recent studies, animal studies like bee studies and on effects on trees and the canopy and all that, has the Environmental Health Trust reached out to environmental organizations like NRDC or Sierra Club or others to help them in this battle rather than taking it on yourself? And can you briefly indicate or talk about what's going on overseas and their battles, good and bad, as far as their victories and awareness?
Sure. So, yes, and actually, we're doing more of that, reaching out to organizations. We've certainly reached out to the Sierra Club. NRDC, actually, they filed an amicus brief in our case, in our lawsuit against the FCC, where they talk about this issue and the lack of protections for wildlife. So we're going to be doing a lot more in the upcoming year as well. We're actually developing a website just dedicated to wildlife impacts. In other countries, I will tell you that the European Union is funding research looking at impacts to wildlife. Not the US government, but in Europe, there are some studies moving forward looking at this issue, because with 5G, the frequencies, some of the frequencies that will be used in 5G are those higher submillimeter and millimeter frequencies that uniquely impact the bodies of small animals or insects, bees, and there's been research on that already. So they are looking at that more robustly.
Sylvia, would you like to ask a question, and where are you from?
Yes, I'm from Arizona, and I'm listening to this video in my car, and I have my phone on a holder type thing, and that hooks on to the fan, and I'm running my air conditioning. So what kind of effect does that have on me?
Well, what I would say is, if you're in a situation where, like, the first step to reduce exposure would be to turn the video off so it's just the sound. So when you have video and sound, it's more than just one of them. And then, and thankfully, I'm so glad that this is recorded. You know, obviously, when there are podcasts or other things, have that media pre-downloaded. Like, moving forward, you have your pre-downloaded files so that you can listen to podcasts in the car or listen to pre-downloaded music on your playlists without it having necessarily streaming. So, you know, what does it mean? Well, there haven't been studies specifically looking at the current way that we use technology in this modern era, which is why we're recommending reducing your overall exposure and also calling companies to be more accountable, because we believe that this can all be done. There's much safer ways that technology can be run than the way that we're doing it now.
Marilyn, would you like to ask a question, and where are you from? Trying to get, no. Can't get it. Okay. Marley, would you like to ask a question, and where are you from?
Hi, this is Marley. I'm from Hollywood, Florida. I was just curious, Theodora, thank you for your presentation. Very, very informative. I was wondering about the cages that they have for the Wi-Fi's for the homes. Do those actually protect you? And if you do use it, does the Wi-Fi, do we get reception, or is it just to use it overnight?
You mean the cages for the Wi-Fi router?
Yeah, for the routers, they have like these casings, like a box or something.
You know, I don't know. We haven't tested or addressed the shielding things, again, because of all the because there's just so many different products out there. So I think it is useful to, you know, I've been in situations where I'm, of course, around Wi-Fi, or I'm in a house where there's Wi-Fi, but I have some ability to do some shielding. But I would say, if you can turn it off at night, that's really the best first step on this issue. So I can't speak to products. I wish that we were, but that's a larger, that would require a lot. We really want the companies to be doing that research and having a standardized way, because companies often will do research, but there needs to be a standardized way that you can compare products from different companies and actually also ensure that it's really doing what there's some oversight. There needs to be some oversight too. There are some really good companies out there, but I can't speak to any particular one.
Alice, would you like to ask a question, and where are you from?
Yes, I have a question. I came in late, so I'm sorry if you've already covered this. But you know is it earbuds or whatever those white things are that stick out of your ears? Is there a safe brand or a safe thing to use so that I can listen to my phone as I walk around?
I would use AirTube with a wired piece that had, it's called AirTube earphones.
Is that
not
TUBE?
wireless?
Is that TUBE?
Yeah, like tube. Mm-hmm.
AirTube wired.
Yeah, like AirTube headset for a cell phone. You could just search that. We have some on our website. If you go on our website, we have a section on products actually, and we have links to products.
Can you tell me that website, please?
ehtrust.org.
EHTRUST,
ehtrust.org. I could put it in the chat actually.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Evelyn, would you like to ask a question, and where are you from?
I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico. So my question is about the electric company putting a smart meter on my home. So the electric company is trying to tell me that they're only going to turn on the Wi-Fi momentarily to take the reading of my electric usage. But I think that must be some kind of PR deceptive spin, because your website says that all smart devices emit low-level frequencies 24/7, including radio frequencies and magnetic frequencies and harmonic frequencies. So isn't that smart meter going to be kind of like a cell phone that's always on, that I can't turn off at night, like a router, because it's actually connected to the wiring in my home?
Okay, so thank you for bringing up the issue of smart meters. Every smart meter, there are different kinds of models. So are they saying it's the kind that wakes up when the truck goes by? Most or many smart meters work on a mesh network. And if you can have an analog or keep the one that you have, that's what we recommend. I have a page that's all on smart meters, and I'm going to put a link to that in the chat, because there are some smart meters that are sort of like bubble up, but honestly, it depends on the models are all different. So I don't want to speak too much more on it than I would say get the technical specs from the company, and also connect with a local smart meter group in your state or community. Every state in the US has smart meter groups that are working on this, or safe tech groups or 5G groups, and the people in those groups know like what's going on in the local community and with the smart meters. So let me put that in the chat.
Linda, would you like to ask a question, and where are you from?
Hi, I'm from New York. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I've been seeing a lot of these pyramids now that have crystals in them and maybe some copper wire. Do those help to counteract the effects of the EMFs?
You know, I don't know. This isn't what we do research in, so I can't speak to these
And
products.
also the Shanghai pyramids as well.
I can't answer that. That's certainly not my area, and our organization hasn't worked on that. So
Okay.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, Ainsley, last question. Where are you from?
All right, Ainsley Amirali from Trinidad and Tobago. Theodora, since it's the last question and you're talking about frequencies, what about the positive frequencies that we normally see on YouTube, like this healing frequency at 528 hertz heals the body and 700 hertz heals the body? What is your thoughts on healing frequencies from YouTube in particular? Thanks.
Yeah, I don't know about YouTube, but I know there are healing frequencies, and there's a lot of research being done in the medical field to use electromagnetic fields and non-ionizing electromagnetic fields to heal, or to even help deliver drugs from to different parts of your body that might have membranes that don't allow the drugs through. But our bodies, all cells in our body have frequencies, and we emit frequencies. So it would make sense that frequencies are used in that way. But I don't know exactly what you're referring to in terms of the YouTube. But if it can heal, it can harm. And if it can heal, it's very powerful. So we should use it thoughtfully. So I think that for all of these frequencies, when they're artificial, we need to be careful and just make sure that it's not going to harm us. And the thing that's different between healing frequencies and wireless communication frequencies is wireless communication is data on the frequency. So it's not just a carrier wave, it's the information, like the video. Like if the video that we're doing right now, for example, if it was wireless, is packaged and carried, and it's erratically, it's pulsed and modulated, and that's very different than the healing frequencies that are being developed, actually. But they're frequencies, but a wireless communication signal is quite more complex, actually. So, but this is an area, I think there's a lot being done in that area right now.
Theodora, how do we follow up with you, stay in touch with you, go to your website? What's the best way for people that want more information and more communication with you? What's the best thing they can do?
Oh, great. Yes, we have a newsletter. I'm going to put the link in. I hope everyone signs up for our newsletter at ehtrust.org. When you sign up, we will send information quite regularly on what's going on. We also have action steps to take if you want to meet with your elected officials. I also have our other website, which is Healthy Tech Home Project. I want to put a link to that in there as well. Okay. So I am putting our Healthy Tech project for if you want to make changes in your home and take it step by step. We have how-to guides. We have like the California Department of Public Health. We have the Maryland Children's Environmental Health Council, Advisory Council recommendations, the Santa Clara Medical Association recommendations, and you can sign up for that. And then let me just put a link to the how-tos, which is healthytechhome.org/resources. That will be, I think, answer a lot of your questions, like how to set up a nursery. Oh, one of the quick things to do is to start at night. Like at night, turn off your phone, turn off the wireless networks that you can, and get out of your bedroom the screens. There don't need to be, computers and also gaming devices. All of those things, actually, like wireless gaming consoles, they emit all the time, even when you're not using them. So get them out of the bedroom, or get ones where you can turn them on airplane mode, or you can put them on a power strip and turn them off when you're not using them. Those are just some simple tricks to reduce your hours of exposure. So thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I hope everyone will try to find a way to donate to EH. What's the website called? EHTrust.
EHTrust.org.
EHTrust.org. And I hope people will make a monthly donation so that they can do this work. If you're thinking that, I don't need to support Theodora and EH Trust and Deborah Davis, someone else will do it. I've been following this issue. I don't really see anyone else doing it. We are very vulnerable, and there's not that many people fighting for us. Very, very, very few people fighting hard. These people are smart. They know what to do. They know the legal system. The only thing separating them from great things is they need the money to fight. They need a tiny fraction of the money that's going against them, because they're very smart about it, but they need some funding. So if there's any way to support them, I hope everyone will. I want to unmute everyone so we could all thank you. This was really great, Theodora. We appreciate it so much. Thank you for everything that you did.
Thank you, Theodora.
So much.
From Theodora.
Yeah, it's very